Good evening, you're watching News Night, and today, on a day when Pakistan gave a so-called dossier against India and what's happening in Jammu and Kashmir and mentioned opposition leaders in their statements, including that of Rahul Gandhi, Omar Abdullah, many others. Today, the questions we're asking, of course, are multifold. And one of the main questions, of course, is this: whether or not, despite their best efforts, has Pakistan been able to give any currency worldwide on the international stage to their narrative of what's happening in Jammu and Kashmir? Remember, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, the foreign minister of Pakistan, spoke earlier today at the UN HRC and also used words that many believe are way afar, really, from what the reality is in Jammu and Kashmir. We'll explore all sides of the subject here. But I'd like to start first with Maruf Raza, who's joining us tonight on the debate. Along with Maruf Raza, we have Lieutenant General retired Shankar Prasad, the defense analyst, Dr. Bhaskar Balakrishnan, former diplomat, and Ahmed Ayaz, lawyer, joining us from Delhi. Maruf, I'd like to start with you very quickly. Do you believe that every time there is internal debate between politicians in the country, different opposition parties, and they can differ really in the manner in which whatever has been done in Jammu and Kashmir, but given the fact that Pakistani's mischievous attempt to put those statements out of context today, as happened today in Shah Mahmood Qureshi's speech and the dossier that has been handed over to the UNHRC there as well, do you believe, despite the clarifications made by Rahul Gandhi and other leaders themselves, this was inevitable because that's what Pakistan resorts to, has in the past, and will continue to do so in the future?
See, first, I thought Pakistan will clutch at every straw in the wind to basically buttress their argument that India's got it all wrong in Kashmir and they seem to be the really bleeding heart supporters for Kashmiris as they continue to project themselves. But I would like to ask the Pakistanis a couple of very straightforward questions. One is that why is it that it is acceptable to them that the military's human rights abuses record, which both the Human Rights Organization in Pakistan and the Supreme Court has questioned about Baluchistan, is acceptable to them, and what India has done, which is clearly an internal matter that even Russia has emphasized on, seems to be worrying them because they seem to be now clutching to this aspect to try and play this up internationally and to show to the Kashmiris that they really care for them. But if they do, then what they call also Kashmir, which I don't regard really as the Kashmir as the point of dispute, which is the POK area, they've divided it into two parts. They did a political rearrangement there, which is what we've done now, which is an internal matter and seems to be irking them. The second thing, and which is what also is amusing to me, that Pakistan keeps harping on the fact that journalists and internet should be allowed to go and operate there. It didn't seem to worry them that China has blacked out virtually the whole country of the Republic of China through Google and other arrangements, and has interned more than 1 million Muslims in the eager areas and tried to make better Muslims out of them, or Chinese Muslims out of them, and it doesn't seem to bother Pakistan. Now, Pakistan seems to be also condoning the massacre of Shias in Pakistan in mosques, and enough evidence of that is available. And the same Kashmiri populace they seem to be crying over, a large majority of them, at least amongst the elites, are also Shias. So why is it the Shias of Kashmir Valley are more acceptable to them than the Shias of Pakistan per se? Okay. And their own human rights record in Bangladesh is deplorable. And it is all documented by the Bangladeshis. Their way that they have butchered the people of Baltistan is acceptable to them. But if India says not one security force casualty has taken place post August 5 in Kashmir, is unacceptable to them.
Let me get General Prasad in on this as well. General Prasad, the criticism coming in politically internally in the country is that statements like the one that Pakistan has used today, not only of Rahul Gandhi but many other politicians named, activists named as well, of course we know they've put it out of context there, and that is to be expected from Pakistan. But the criticism coming in is, if you criticize the manner in which the government has moved on the abrogation of Article 370 and the subsequent reality in Jammu and Kashmir, even internal debate could perhaps give a handle to Pakistan. Do you agree with that statement and that criticism, first of all?
You see, the point is very simple and very straightforward without going into a kind of multiple issues. Pakistan really does not know what to do except to say human rights are being violated in Kashmir. The truth is, which you have heard recently in an interview by the DGP, as also by the remarks of the NSA, that 90 to 95% of the police stations have normalcy in it. The normalcy and peacefulness are two different things that the J&K DG has just said, which are very valid. There is no human rights violation whatsoever. For them to say that human rights violation means, have we done any massacre there? Has anybody been killed? Has the armed forces used any bullets to kill people? Who have died? 4 or 5 incidents have been reported, and that also the casualty has been inflicted on the people in Kashmir by the militants. The main issue is that some of these so-called leaders who run Kashmir are today under some kind of house arrest or whatever you may like to call it. They're not under jail. They're leading their lives pretty much okay in their own lovely houses in Kashmir. They have no problem. The only problem they've got is they haven't got internet, they haven't got cell phones. Yes, that is something that should be restored as soon as possible. But why are we not restoring it urgently? That's the question we need to ask. And if we restore it, you have just heard a couple of days ago the NSA say 200 to 300 militants, something like 250 militants are just sitting across the line of control, and we've got intercept from Pakistan to say, go and do something, are you wearing bangles? So we are now concerned more about the safety of the Kashmiri people so that the militants don't come here and kill our people. You've just heard the DGP say a short while ago on your channel that the people who are coming out and killing are the militants. And there are some 200 and odd militants also possibly living in Kashmir with the help of these people who are under arrest today. These are the people who have been giving shelter to these people, providing them logistics. It is all drying up.
All right.
Therefore, the thing, you see, if Pakistan is today being very stupid, they better worry about Bangkok, where the Financial Action Task Force is going to come up on Monday.
All right.
Rather than talk about human rights.
Give me a second now. Give me a second now. Before I go back to Mr. Balakrishnan and explore the diplomatic, so-called diplomatic offensive that Pakistan is mounting currently on the international stage. Before I do that, I want to get a quick reaction from Ahmed Ayaz. Ahmed, you've heard Maruf Raza out, you've heard General Prasad out as well. Do you agree with their points here, and do you agree with the reading of their situation? And do you also believe that perhaps there is far more to be done, perhaps differently within Jammu and Kashmir by the central government here? And if they had done things differently by, let's say, use a popular phrase by certain politicians, in consultation with the Kashmiri people, perhaps Pakistan wouldn't have the chance to try and portray their narrative to the world stage. Some people believe by doing what we did in Jammu and Kashmir, inevitably it had to be internationalized, no matter what Pakistan or anybody says.
Absolutely, Atar. The political class within the country has a reason to discuss the issue, to point out as to the way the abrogation of Article 370 has taken place. They have a reason to talk about it. There's no doubt about it, and there can be discussion, there can be debate, there can be criticism. That's no doubt there. And then second point is that right now you must be knowing it that more emphasis are given on the human rights and the violation which has been taking place there after the abrogation of 370 in Jammu and Kashmir. It is everybody's concern. The human rights everywhere is everybody's concern, not only in Jammu and Kashmir. Anywhere any violation taking place should be the concern of everybody. And if the international community takes note of it, or anybody takes about it so far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, I don't think there is anything wrong being done. Yes, there is a reason for anybody
to take position, Ahmed. What about the fact that the stated Indian position... No, one second, Ahmed Ayaz, let me just clarify one point here. The Indian stated position of the Indian government, successive governments, not just his government, of course, has been that Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, and the conflict or so-called dispute or whatever you want to call it, whatever nomenclature you might want to use, is an internal matter of India, and nobody really has any locus standi to comment on it or try and mediate or even try and interfere in whatever happens internally within a province of India. How would you then reconcile your comments with the stated Indian position?
You see, it has come on number of times that India has it is a stated position of the India that it had been an internal issue, but the point is when they signed an agreement in the Shimla with the Pakistan calling it a bilateral, before that they had a resolution in the United Nations, and thereafter they called it bilateral by virtue of the Shimla agreement, and thereafter after the abrogation of the Article 370 when it was called to be the internal issue, thereafter when the Prime Minister of India visited the America and then he spoke openly in presence of the President US Trump, US President, that this is a bilateral issue. So this being a position of the government of India, definitely the questions will arise. Number of questions are likely to arise, and I think there are many barriers to see the decision what has been taken in the Parliament by a big majority.
I want to involve Dr. Mr. Balakrishnan on this point now. At this point, Mr. Balakrishnan, you've heard Ahmed Ayaz and his reading of the situation. Tell our viewers why you disagree with him. I have a very strong notion that you do disagree with him. And also, if I could just pick your brains for a couple of seconds, Mr. Balakrishnan, on the so-called diplomatic offensive that Pakistan has been mounting, or has been trying to mount at least, rather unsuccessfully, I might add, on the world stage. Shah Mahmood Qureshi spoke today. He used words, of course, that India will never really stand by, and he's tried to portray a picture of Kashmir, which, of course, was not only alarmist, but also perhaps some people would say, a figment of a very fertile imagination of the Pakistani military state as well. Do you think, sir, that this particular narrative will find any currency? And we'll play out that one certain excerpts. Before you answer my questions, I want my viewers to see what Shah Mahmood Qureshi had said earlier, and then Mr. Balakrishnan can give us his comments. Take a look at this first.
If the life has returned to normalcy, then I say, why don't they allow you, the international media, why don't they allow international organizations, the NGOs, civil society organizations to go into the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir and see for themselves, into the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir and see for themselves, into the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, into the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, into the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir and see for themselves.
The Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, perhaps Pakistanis back home in his own country won't like that too much. Mr. Balakrishnan, please go ahead, sir. You know the context. We would like to know your views.
Okay. One of the things an anchor should do is not talk for too long. Anyway, look, the biggest threat to human rights comes from terrorism across the border and their supporters within the region. And what the restrictions have been put on is not on the people of Jammu and Kashmir. It is on a small group of people who are likely to support terrorism and destabilize the state. The large majority of the area of Jammu and Kashmir, there is no restrictions on the people. They are going about their lives, and they'd like to go about it too. In Ladakh and Jammu is quite okay. It's parts of Kashmir where there is a problem. Now, the Human Rights Council, this session goes up to 27 September. This is the second day of it. Shah Mahmood Qureshi has let off a lot of steam. I think he made a slip of the tongue, a Freudian slip perhaps. But we have to take what he said seriously. In the last part of his statement, if you read it, he has put a number of action points. So this sort of indicates that Pakistan might attempt to table some sort of a resolution or a decision at the Human Rights Council. And that's something we'll have to fight. There is also the UN General Assembly, which will start on 23rd, later this month. So that will be another forum where Pakistan will try to raise the issue. Now, since all these diplomatic encounters or forums are being activated, Pakistan will do its best to create more terrorist incidents and pass it off as some sort of a uprising. So we have to be vigilant about that. The battle has to be fought on the security side as well as on the diplomatic front.
All right. Do you think, sir? And I'll come back to your statement about anchors in just a bit. I want to give you as much respect as I can, but I'll leave that for later. Right now, I'll give that a pass right now. But going back to Maruf Raza on this as well, do you agree with Mr. Balakrishnan that in all probability there will be a resolution that will be tried to be tabled by Pakistan? They will in fact try everything in the book to try and keep it internationalized, inevitably, as many believe. And do you think what do you think the the steps that India can take? Although we know, Maruf, that our Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar has been working round the clock trying to brief our allies and other countries as well. There's been a counter-offensive from India's end as well. Do you think that's enough, or should we try something more?
See, by and large, the point Mr. Balakrishnan has made about human rights and resolutions, etc., is correct, and that is generally the view amongst all of us, that till such time that Pakistan manages to get some kind of hearing at the Geneva Forum and at New York, they'll keep harping on it because they have nothing else to fall back on. Secondly, the abrogation of Article 370 or parts of it, which applies to Jammu and Kashmir, has come as an opportune time for Pakistan, because Pakistan just after that got these two UN forums to be able to do India baiting. But please also understand what Pakistani ministers say. They often try and use international forums to address their local domestic gathering and try and win brownie points at home, because Pakistan's politicians have had nothing to show to their people except the fact that when Kashmir Valley comes to them, then they'll start the process of building Pakistan. I don't see that happening, at least in our lifetimes. The next point is that when people talk about terrorism and Pakistan talks about terrorism, I think we've been too reticent and shy not to hit them in their soft underbelly, which is about Baluchistan. And if people argue that's an internal matter of Pakistan, so is Kashmir an internal matter of India, as Russia has said, and so have so many other international powers more or less alluded to. So whether internal, bilateral or international, we should be able to hit back as bad as Pakistan is trying to give it to us, because fighting shy, being reactive has got us nowhere. And there is enough in Pakistan's shoddy track record of human rights for us to expose that, whether in Baluchistan or Baltistan. The final point is, when they talk about India's acts of terror, they may like to reflect on the fact that even Imran Khan recently admitted in front of the international media that yes, Pakistan has kept terrorists, it has sponsored terrorism, but now it wants to turn the corner. I mean, Imran Khan saying so will not get their military to abandon what is quite clearly a military vertical of Pakistan. We have military verticals like Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guards, Border Forces, etc. They also have jihadis as one of their military verticals, and he's not going to be strong enough to abandon that.
Going back, General Prasad, I want to ask you one more time very quickly, because one of the themes of this debate today, of course, was that the fact that Rahul Gandhi and other politicians, their statements have been used, twisted really out of context to present a picture by Pakistan which would, to the untrained eye, look as if even people in India, politicians, mainstream opposition leaders, are in fact very critical of the move of the government in Jammu and Kashmir. Would you believe, or would you agree that all debate, internal debate, dissensions, or perhaps different kinds of view should altogether be banned, given the fact that this is still a democracy?
No, you can't ban them. How can you ban such statements? We are a democracy, we are a vibrant democracy.
Let me use the word avoided in the Pakistani context. Avoided, not banned, avoided.
Well, that is up to the people who speak. They must understand that as far as India-Pakistan relationship is concerned, they better be with India in all aspects, whether it is security, whether it is terrorism, whether it's human rights, or whether it is communications in Kashmir and whatever other issues that go around with it. The point is simple, that the political parties in India must understand what has been good for Kashmir. And good for Kashmir has been the abrogation of this act, so that for the last 70 years, the benefit that they did not get from the central government will now begin to accrue to them. This is something that universally is acceptable in India. Now, for just political points which are useless to make, I cannot say why they make and why they don't make. They have every right to speak what they feel like. They're only coming out with people to know what kind of people they're made of. They can't understand as to what is happening. A wonderful phrase was used by the DGP police just now on your channel to say, Pakistan, as far as the situation in Kashmir is concerned, it is peaceful, but it is not normal. Normalcy will only come when I can get rid of all the terrorists. The terrorists are being hunted by the armed forces. As and when they can get to them, they will eliminate them. They've eliminated a large number. Whatever is left will also get eliminated, provided the people who are providing them shelter are not interfering with the military operations. That is the important point. As far as the peacefulness is concerned, hardly anything has happened in Kashmir in the last 35 days. How many people? The armed forces have not used a single round. The police have not used any force. The biggest diktat that the central government has given to all security forces is that make sure that people are not put to inconvenience by shooting and by killing. Don't bring any harm. Those people who pelted stone 3,000 or whatever number that have been were arrested, counseled and let go.
Ahmed Ayaz wants to come in on this.
Instigating because of their personal reasons.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Ahmed Ayaz wants to come in on this. Yes.
Mr.
Balakrishnan. Okay, Ahmed Ayaz first.
The point being raised that this being an internal the point being raised that it's an internal issue. I think that should not now be taken up. Why? Because that stands clarified by the Prime Minister itself that it's not an internal issue now. It's a bilateral issue. That's one. Second, that somebody saying that the internet issue etc. that we should. You see, point is that what has it caused? The internet, the clamp down on internet has made every student studying outside, inside to suffer in a way. They are not in a position to submit their fees. They are not in a position to make their documentation. We are not, 20 years back. It is now we are in a digital age. Everything is been done digitally. It is not a small thing that the students studying abroad. What is the condition of the students who are not in a position to conduct their parents or to get the fees from their home and to submit to the colleges for the tuition? See, it's a big international, it's a big human rights violation that way. Leaving aside that we are not in a position to talk to each other, we are not in a position to communicate each other, and then the business,
would you like
then
to
you
feel
have
that
to see
question?
the business economy,
Okay, let me put that question to Mr. Balakrishnan.
There is no business being done.
Mr. Balakrishnan, would you like to feel that query, sir? Go ahead. One second. I think Ahmed has made a couple of points. Would you like to feel that query, sir?
Well, I think the government is looking at ways to ease the restrictions as soon as possible. Let's give them a little more time. Because in the face of stepped up terrorist activity from across the border, there is a problem. I mean, if these activities across the border are stepped up, then it becomes more difficult. But I think there will be a phased easing of restrictions. Perhaps area-wise, we can look forward to that. Now, this whole business of political parties debate, the political parties will say what they think will attract their voters. But I think the kind of things some of them are saying will actually cost them a lot of political support within the country. Ultimately, when the elections are held, then we will know exactly what price they will pay. So it's a short-sighted on their part to try and extract political support by making certain statements.
But Mr. Balakrishnan, is there a binary that as Mr. Ahmed Ayaz put right now, we speak of national security issues in Kashmir, of course, being top of that particular pyramid there. It's a national security issue for India as well. But can you really compare that with the human cost? Is that a comparison we should even make? Because on the ground, that, of course, comparison has been made automatically. Whether you and I believe in it is irrelevant right now. Does it have to be that binary, that fine for a time period, the Kashmiris will have to go back to the pre-digital age, and that's okay in the name of national security?
Well, I think that some easing of restrictions has taken place. Landline communications have been restored, so people can use landlines and they can go to call centers and use the landlines from there. And I suspect the authorities are considering some sort of way by which internet access can be facilitated, perhaps through internet cafes, if not internet at home.
Okay, that's your answer, sir. I'll have to stop you there. I'm completely out of time on this one as well. I must thank Maruf Raza for joining us, along with General Prasad, as well as Ahmed Ayaz and Mr. Balakrishnan. As far as your earlier comments, in terms of knowledge of diplomacy and diplomatic maneuvers, I'll defer to you. But I would ask you to defer to me, a professional television anchor for many, many years, about how to conduct a show. That's all I'll say on that. Thank you for joining us. This was Newsnight.